With just over 10 minutes left till the closing bell on Wall Street, we're looking at how to navigate the big picture with the Yahoo Finance playbook. While it's mainly big names like NVIDIA and Meta making headlines for record gains, we are taking a closer look at where and why investors can find value within the tech sector. Joining us now, Doug Clinton, Deepwater Asset Management Managing Partner, and Cory Johnson, the Futurum Group Chief Market Strategist. Thanks, guys, for being here. Cory, I want to start with you because usually we think of growth and value as sort of being diametrically opposed. But when does it make sense for investors to look for value in tech, traditionally a sort of growthy sector?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are classical definitions of these types of names, and historically we've seen tech as growth, and indeed a lot of tech companies without any profits are hard to value as value stocks. But I think a lot of that has changed over time, and we've seen, I mean, the king of all value investors, right, Warren Buffett, with his giant holdings in Apple, and in this notion that technology can't be value is just wrong. And then there's timing, and that's when investors have to think about what they're investing for, what kinds of returns, and when they need them. And to understand if it's worth a long wait, if there are some things that are willing to be more speculative, and what the timing is for those investments to figure out what the market is favoring at that moment. There are times when the market loves value stocks, and there's times when the market hates it.
Doug, I want to bring you here in as well, and it's great to see you. As you note, Doug, finding deep value in tech can be a challenge, but you have some names for us. One is SK Hynix. Why would that name, Doug, maybe fit the bill here?
Just if you rewind the clock a year, NVIDIA probably was the greatest value in tech. It might have been the greatest value stock, period, over the last year in hindsight, because if you had a crystal ball, the stock at one point probably traded below 10 times forward actual earnings. The business is growing so fast. To your question about Hynix, Hynix is a memory supplier to NVIDIA. So NVIDIA uses Hynix's high bandwidth memory in their chips that are in huge demand right now from hyperscalers and now potentially sovereign nations and other industrial companies that are building their AI infrastructure. So we see Hynix, which is a holding in our Deepwater Frontier Tech Index that powers the Loop ETF. We see Hynix as a potential beneficiary of continued demand for those NVIDIA chips.
Doug, something I'm curious to get your take on when it comes to something like an SK Hynix, which, as we know, semiconductors traditionally have been a commodity business, and memory chips particularly so. Do you see the AI cycle smoothing that out, making that business less commoditized?
I think in the medium term, yes. And so there is some nuance to this answer. I think that the AI cycle that we are just entering into right now will last likely longer than many of the other cycles that we've seen in the past. I think we're going to have a very long road of infrastructure build to support AI, because right now, the way that AI models work, intelligence is wholly dependent on electricity and chips. And so as long as that is true with these models, and I think it will be true for several years from now, we're going to have to continue to build data centers that house thousands of these chips. And even though memory has been a little bit commoditized in the past, there's really only three big memory vendors. It's Hynix, it's Micron, it's Samsung. And I think Hynix has been on the front end of really aggressive development of new memory products. And that's why I think they'll stay in the lead.
And one more quick one for Doug. Would you prefer SK Hynix, Doug, over its big rival, Micron?
I think you can own both. And here's the thing that's actually a challenge, just a nuance for US investors. Hynix is a Korean listed stock, so it's a little bit hard to get access to it. You can get access in the Loop ETF I mentioned a little bit earlier. For Micron, obviously that's a US listed stock. If you want to play just memory broadly and you want direct exposure, Micron's the easier route to go.
And so, Cory, I'm going to take it to you and see what you might be looking at here in the sort of, given the parameters of what we're talking about here, value in this market.
Well, I have so many thoughts, right? So DRAM is DRAM, and the DRAM manufacturers have always told us that they're DRAM special, and the market has always told us that that's not the case. And I think what we really know, so whether it's Samsung or Hynix or Micron, DRAM prices are extraordinarily volatile because they are. It is easier to swap out DRAM than it is a CPU. It is easy. A graphics processor is so difficult to swap out. That's why you've seen such fantastic top line growth from NVIDIA. And I think to Doug's point about value, I mean, I've been kicking myself for not owning NVIDIA in my personal accounts and in my portfolio. And yet I looked the other morning and one of my biggest holdings for years has been Comfort Systems, which is not a stock recommendation, but just an observation that I was to try to stop from kicking myself, was looking at this company, Comfort Systems, that is HVAC repair, right? Nothing less sexy, nothing more value-y than this notion of fixing HVAC. And yet the performance in 3 years is almost identical to that of NVIDIA. So, and my point is that this market is actually a little more kinder to value investors than it has been for years, and that we really are seeing winners separated from losers within technology and outside of technology. If you look at just today, right, look at CrowdStrike and how well that stock is performing compared to what's happening with Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks came out a few weeks ago and told us that they were seeing, was it a week ago? The time is flying, telling us that they were seeing customer fatigue, and yet you see CrowdStrike going out to the same kinds of customers saying those customers are happy to buy. It suggests that the companies are performing differently and the market is able to determine winners from losers. A stock picker's market is a necessary element to a value stock performing. And what we see right now is, while we are at all-time highs or in and around in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and beyond, what we're seeing is the market really is distinguishing between winners and losers. And NVIDIA has been a fantastic winner. And to Doug's point, it's still on a PEG ratio, a price to earnings growth ratio, a lot more affordable than many other companies, even in the same sector.
And Doug, I'll bring it to you and get you out of here on this one. I'm going to switch gears here, Doug, just because I'm very curious about your answer. Your firm, Doug, it owns Alphabet, and there's a stock where, listen, it's in the red so far this year, Doug. There's been this real criticism, and you've heard it, of the company. It's just not moving fast enough when it comes to AI. As a shareholder, Doug, do you share that worry?
We've been super frustrated, I would say, Josh, in terms of the speed of development with AI. Google, Alphabet, they have all the tools, all the components they need to be the real runaway leaders in AI. They have the data, they have the team, they have the distribution through products like Android and Chrome. They just haven't had the pace that OpenAI has had. And that's what you see when startups like OpenAI disrupt incumbents. And that's a worry for us. They still have all those ingredients. That's why we haven't sold the stock yet and why we're still optimistic. But it has been frustrating for shareholders. And I think you're hearing more of that. I think eventually the company needs to make a statement, make a move, have some sort of almost a meta-like moment. A year ago where they moved into a year of efficiency, they need something to light the fire again to put those assets into motion.